I work as a security guard for a company that takes jobs no one else will. Part 6. One of the guards told me that he worked in a residential building. The building itself was normal, but in the basement of the building was a big round hole. No one knew how it got there, and the residents said they just woke up to find it there one day. The old lady who discovered it almost fell inside when she went to retrieve her bicycle. Various survey and research teams were sent to investigate the hole, but oddly enough, no equipment could determine where the bottom was. Electronics would stop working at a certain depth. Throwing something inside produced no sound of impact. Chemical lights got swallowed by the darkness, etc. They sent one crew member down there, but after about 10 minutes of descending, he stopped responding. They pulled him out as fast as they could, but he was gone. All that was left of him was the pile of clothes he was wearing, still attached to the safety gear and ropes. The company was appointed to stand guard in front of the basement and not let anyone in. The guard who worked there, Andy, told me the job was pretty leisure most nights, except that he was bored. Then one night, he heard something coming from inside the basement. It sounded like someone was calling his name. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, but the more he listened, the more he became convinced it was his sister. Despite getting instructions from HQ not to go near the hole, mostly due to the possibility of slipping and falling, Andy opened the door. Sure enough, there it was, his sister's voice calling him, right from the hole, clear as day. He asked her how she got there and if she was okay, and she perkily said that everything was fine. She asked Andy to come down there so they could talk. She talked in such a nonchalant way that Andy became suspicious of the whole situation. She asked him again to come down. Andy refused, telling her that he would call for help, to which his sister became increasingly agitated and angry. She demanded that he come down there and help her. Andy didn't budge, and his sister said that he would let her die down there, just like he let their father die. Andy froze to this, and his sister uttered a single sentence which made Andy run out of there. "Andy, life is nothing but a pile of shit." Those were his father's last words before he killed himself in front of Andy. Andy bolted out of the building, listening to his sister calling after him and begging him to come down. Andy called HQ, telling them he was never going back. He was assigned to a different post and never had a problem again. The really weird thing about this whole experience was that no one but Andy knew what his father's last words were. He never told anyone that he watched him turn the gun on himself, and just stuck to the story that he found him dead. But the weirdest thing of all was the fact that his sister had died in a tragic car accident 4 years before he ever saw the hole. The basement was locked tightly afterwards, and guards continued working there, but they all reported the same thing. Voices of their loved ones calling them from the hole, and always asking one thing, same thing, to come down. The intervention guy whose story I shared in one of the earlier updates told me another one recently, which chilled me to the bone. He and his unit were stationed at a long-since abandoned hotel. They'd get to do whatever they wanted in the hotel, but at exactly 4:25 a.m., they had to assemble at the reception desk. Their job was to sweep the entire area for any suspicious activity. The guy who told me this said HQ never told them who or what they were looking for, but they were ordered to shoot on sight upon seeing anyone besides the unit members in the hotel. They had been sweeping the hotel 4 nights in a row at exactly 4:30 a.m. until 5 a.m., but never found traces of anyone. And then on the 5th night, as they checked the 2nd floor, the commander of the unit ordered them to stop and be quiet. There was a sound of muffled giggling coming from somewhere on the floor. Strangely though, as they listened, the giggling was always the same intonation and length of pause. Giggle, 5-second pause. Giggle, 5-second pause. He described it as an adult trying to impersonate a child's giggle. Carefully, the unit followed the sound to one of the rooms, and as they stood in front of the door, the giggling became louder and more frequent. The unit burst inside the room and pointed their guns at the source of the sound. Facing the window was a tall person, except it wasn't a person. Here's how the guy who told me this described the creature: a very round face, which contrasted its impossibly thin body. It had extremely long arms and legs, and it was so inhumanly tall that it had to hunch over and bend its knees in order to avoid touching the ceiling. It giggled again, and it still sounded muffled, just as it did behind a closed door. The unit stood there with their guns pointed at this thing, as the creature giggled once more before going silent. And then it slowly started to turn around and locked eyes with the unit. The creature apparently had a grinning, toothy, round face with large, unblinking eyes, and this took the unit aback so much that they froze. It giggled again, but this time it was deeper and more guttural, albeit still muffled. Just then, the creature started running towards the unit, all while giggling, louder and faster than ever. Everyone fired at will, practically emptying their clips into the thing. Luckily, the giggler, as he was later dubbed by the intervention unit, never managed to reach them and fell backwards as soon as the force of the bullets connected with it. As it lay there on the ground, it apparently kept giggling some more, but the sound became slower and more quiet, until it completely stopped, leaving the creature dead with its grinning face never changing. The commander informed HQ about this, who told them that their mission was complete and they no longer needed to stay in the hotel. The intervention guy concluded that 2 of the unit members committed suicide within 2 months after the mission. In their farewell notes, they said they could no longer stand to listen to the giggling at night. This is Kinetic Symphony. If you've enjoyed this narrated story, please subscribe and like the video to help me grow. Thank you.